Hello, 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 hello. We should be live. Radio check 1, 2, 3. Okie dokes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Welcome along to the coverage here in Silverstone. We are back at the British Grand Prix. 30 minutes till the start of free practice one. We've got a sprint weekend lined up in the next couple of days, so this is going to be quite the exciting weekend. And yeah, look forward to commentating to you guys, folks. Hello. Hope you've all had a nice week since the Austrian Grand Prix, and yeah, here we are back for some more racing. Okay, I will be getting the upgrade document list up shortly, so hopefully we can have a look through what documents what upgrades we've got for the cars this weekend. In fact, here we go. Let me just pop it up onto the screen while we're for the start of the weekend. Okay, so here we go. These are the upgrade documents for the Silverstone Grand Prix, and let's make our way down. So starting off with McLaren, just a few tweaks here. Again, for McLaren, they've got some changes to their front brake duct and a little bit to the floor as well at the back of, well, at the front of the car, actually, the entry into the side pod. And then also a few things in the diffuser. So some changes to the geometry there for McLaren, but nothing too major. Shouldn't be anything more than half a tenth really that they're gaining out of this performance. These upgrade packages. Mercedes have brought no upgrades whatsoever. Fair enough. You know, they had a reasonably big upgrade in Austria. Same thing can be said for Red Bull. They've just brought a tiny little thing at the rear of the car, just next to the rear brake ducts where the rear wheels are. And then we have got Ferrari, again, very small upgrades for them because, well, you know, they brought, again, a big upgrade package in Austria, so they can't bring upgrades every single time. Same thing, rear changes right at the back of the car around about where the rear wheel is. You've then got Williams, small changes to their front wing for their car, try and increase sort of the aerodynamic efficiency and just make the car a bit quicker overall at the circuit of Silverstone. You've got, again, small changes for Racing Bulls, where they've got some changes to the rear of their car. A lot of the teams making tweaks here actually at the back of the floor, and that's where a lot of performance is left to be found, and that's why, you know, we're getting a lots of changes being made there. Aston Martin, yet again, no upgrades for them. We've got Haas with, again, more changes to the back of their car towards the rear wing and the end plates. Nothing for Audi, nothing for Alpine, nothing for Cadillac. So very minor set of upgrades here at Silverstone, nobody with a big upgrade package, and everyone just making small little tweaks to the car here and there. Alright. Yeah, my voice isn't doing so great as of right now, so that's why I sound a little bit weird. And also, yes, I was lacking a little bit in the sleep department as well. I was on a bit of a delayed train yesterday and got back quite late. So, yeah. Hello, Mr. F1 Gamer. Do you think it's going to rain again in the race like it was last year? Max is projected to win last year. What happened when his setup wasn't good for the rain? Well, you know, the British weather, as we know, is pretty unpredictable. But currently looking at the forecast, it does seem to be dry. So there is that. However, I'm sure many of you are aware that it has been quite sunny in the past in the whole of Europe for the last week or so, and you know, even the week before that, which typically means that at some point we are going to get a big sort of rain shower. So you know, that's on the cards, but the forecast isn't showing anything as of yet. So we'll just have to wait closer to the date to see if we are actually going to get any rain. But the forecast, I just don't really trust it in the UK, to be honest. I think I have much better luck just looking at the clouds outside, looking which direction the wind's coming from, and then sort of making a judgment off that. So unfortunately, I'm not at Silverstone to be able to look at the clouds, but yeah, it's cooled down quite a bit actually in the past week or so. All right. Where are Perez and Bottas? I don't see them on the driver list. Well, it says up there on the screen that the 2026 data will be loading shortly. Currently up on the screen, we've got the 2025 data, and in fact, I probably should have rewinded it back all the way to there. But yeah, the 2025 data is up on the screen. We'll get the 2026 soon enough. Do you think the battery is going to be a big problem this race? And unfortunately, I do think it is going to be a big problem. Out of all of the circuits on the Formula One season, I think Silverstone is going to be surprisingly worse than Monza. You know, on initial thought, a lot of people, including myself, would have thought that Monza would be one of the worst tracks, but upon a bit of further inspection, it turns out that Silverstone might be one of the worst. And the reason for that is that circuits like Austria, circuits like Monza, they do have long straights, but they do also have very big braking zones, right? You look at Austria, turn number 1, turn number 3, turn 4. You've got some pretty big braking zones there where you can recharge your battery. Same thing can be said for Monza, right? You've got the first chicane, you've got the second chicane, you've got then the third chicane, the Ascari chicane, and then also Parabolica as well as a reasonably big braking zone. So here in Silverstone, you haven't really got much of that. Turn number 3 is your biggest braking zone on the circuit, and then apart from that, you're only downshifting, I'd say, 3 gears for every other braking zone, right? So going into turn number 6 into Brooklyn, it's from 8th gear down into 5th gear, in towards Stowe, also 8th gear to 5th gear, maybe even 8th gear to 6th gear. So, and then turn 16 as well is a reasonably big braking zone. You've only got 2 there, and they're quite spread out across the lap. So, I think that is going to be that's going to be an issue. Again, Austria wasn't so bad because, you know, it's quite the short circuit. So we were doing 71 laps of racing around there. So even if you do only have 3 braking zones, you're not flat out for, you know, that many more kilometers. Whereas here in Silverstone, because it is quite the long circuit, only 2 big braking zones and then a lot of kilometers to cover over the course of a lap. That I think will pose more problems. According to the simulators, it does seem to be quite bad, but I guess we'll see. You know, the Baku straight will be bad, but again, you've got to understand that in Baku you have got, again, very big braking zones, so the teams can work around that and sort of manage that. Whereas, yeah, here in Silverstone, those big braking zones are very hard to come by. Yeah. Okay, Maggots and Beckett's full lift. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do, right? A big thing here in Silverstone, especially through Maggots and Beckett's, is your engine braking. So in the past, what would happen is the drivers would lift off the throttle and also not press the brake pedal, and the engine braking would slow them down, because the sort of the sequence of corners that you do have through Maggots and Beckett's is quite nice in the sense that it is just about the right speed where the drivers barely have to touch the brake pedal, and the engine braking, if turned up to the maximum setting, can slow the car down. So I think in this year's cars, what we're going to have is we're going to see the batteries getting recharged potentially through Maggots and Beckett's via, instead of engine braking, they're going to do some recharging to slow the cars down. So they lift off, and obviously they're going to be losing speed through Maggots and Beckett's. That's just how the corners go. But while losing speed, they'll be recharging a bit of battery, and we'll see how that goes. And also, will they be flat through Cops? That'll be another thing that'll be interesting to see. Of course, the cars do have a little bit less downforce than previous years, so maybe that'll be affecting things as well. Do you think there'll be Hulkenberg magic? Well, of course, you know, we're 1 year on from the Nico Hulkenberg podium, so, you know, who knows what will happen. Again, the forecast doesn't seem like there is going to be rain, but it is Silverstone at the end of the day. It's the UK weather, so I wouldn't be too surprised if it does start raining on Sunday. Yeah. Okie dokes, folks. So, hope you're all having a nice week. Let me know if you have any questions about Silverstone, what you think is going to be taking place. But we have got quite the exciting race, to be honest, in my opinion. Yeah. What are my predictions for the weekend? Well, I do think that we will get quite the surprising sprint quali because, well, we've got sprint quali taking place in, just 4 hours' time. So the teams have got 19 minutes till they hit the track, and then 1 hour on the track, and then 3 hours till sprint quali starts. So that's going to be a pretty compressed timeline to get all their setups made. They also then have to work out where is going to be the best place to deploy battery, to recharge battery, and all of those sort of things as well. So they will have done their calculations and their simulations beforehand, but seeing if that actually translates to real life will be another thing, and they'll have to validate all of the stuff that they've done before. So it's going to be extremely compressed. And I think a few teams will get caught out by this. Someone will have an issue in FP1. Someone will have some sort of problems, or maybe we'll just get a red flag because someone crashes or something like that, and then that screws up everybody's run plan, because this FP1 is going to be extremely busy, as always is when we do have a sprint weekend. So I think sprint quality is going to be quite the big mix-up, because some teams will not be 100% on the ball. Okay, if you do want to watch the FP1 session, the sprint weekend, and all of that stuff for this weekend, folks, you can get Proton VPN using the link in the description. It is on ORF TV this weekend, so ORF Formula 1, and you should be able to watch the broadcast. It's on Channel 1 on ORF. F1 Gamer, do you think this track will be more favourable to Ferrari than Mercedes? Ferrari couldn't find pace that last weekend. What do you think about their pace this weekend? Well, look, if all of the loss of pace for Ferrari last weekend was due to the track layout at Austria, well, then this weekend is going to be even worse for them. So we cannot know for certain if all of the pace loss from Spain to Austria was just because of the layout of the track and the recharging system. But if it was due to that, then Ferrari will have a horrible race weekend here at Silverstone, because the differences from Spain to Austria will only be stretched out and get even bigger in terms of the track layout and the recharging and all of that sort of stuff. But if it was something different, and there was their tyre wear was bad, which did seem to be the case, right? Ferrari, both drivers were complaining about tyre wear. They both knew that it was going to be pretty difficult for them. I think conditions will be different this weekend. It's not going to be as hot. The track won't be as hot. So maybe things will be different in that regard. We do also have the harder Pirelli tyres here in Silverstone, so it'll be the hardest compounds available to us. And for that reason, if tyre wear was the problem for Ferrari, then things could be all right. Yeah. What is my Instagram? My Instagram is F1Gamer_official. Yeah. Did Audi bring upgrades? No teams have brought any major upgrades this weekend. We've got a few small tweaks for McLaren, Mercedes, and then a few other teams. I've forgotten now, in fact. But they're all so minor that it's not really relevant to consider any of them as major upgrades. Yeah. They should increase FP1 to 1 hour 30 minutes on sprint weekends. What do you think? Well, no, I think keeping it at 1 hour makes it a bit more of a challenge, right? If you give the teams infinite amounts of time to do pre-season testing, then, or not pre-season, sorry, just infinite amounts of time to practice at a track, then it ends up being quite boring for us to watch the race, because all of the drivers are all spread out. You've got the top team at the front, you've got the second fastest team behind them, third fastest team behind that. So there's not really much mix-up. It's all a little bit too predictable. That was the big problem with the Spanish Grand Prix when we did pre-season testing there. It led to the races being extremely boring. So it is a constant thing, a thing that follows. The more and more testing the teams do at a circuit, the more and more predictable it becomes. I think one occasion that stands out to me the most, 2018 US Grand Prix at the Circuit of Americas, FP1, FP2, it was raining that day, so the teams didn't have a whole lot of time. They didn't get any relevant data. They were all driving around in wet conditions, or not even all of them. Only a few teams went out. And then they only had FP3 to sort everything out. And that made the race a whole lot more interesting. The strategy was a lot more up in the air. And And yeah, so I think having less practice time will make the races more exciting. So I think 1 hour is all right. Okay. Hamilton said on the media day that they lose 4 tenths on the straight, which they think is almost impossible for them to cover in the corner. So I think Ferrari's going to struggle here a lot. Well, yeah, it could be that could be the case. They could make some changes, of course, and modify the setup of the car, and maybe that'll help. But yeah, there's always a balance to be made between speed in the straight, speed in the corners, and stuff like that. Okay. They said quite the large upgrade package for Williams. Well, in the upgrade document, Williams didn't have quite the large set of upgrades. They've only got one. I can show you here. Williams have just got an updated front wing, and that'll generate them a bit more downforce, but that's all they've got in terms of upgrades. So I wouldn't call that a huge upgrade package, to be honest. Yeah. All right. It looks like we are getting the live data for the British Grand Prix, so that is fantastic. I'll just pop that up on the screen. Here we go. All right. And in fact, let me get rid of this piece of text as well. All right. Does Red Bull have any chance of pole here? Well, potentially, right? Supposedly, at a circuit like Silverstone, the battery is going to be struggling quite a bit, so that does lend itself to the idea that the internal combustion engine is going to play more of a role in how this weekend turns out and how the session goes. So potentially there is a chance that the Red Bulls do well here. It's, again, very tough to say, but, if we look at Austria, and if we consider Austria to be a circuit where the battery was a bit of a limiting factor and your internal combustion engine has more importance, then Red Bull, obviously, they did quite well there in Austria. They, if it wasn't for, I think if Max hadn't crashed in qualifying and had found himself up in second position, which is where he was on track to be, or second or third position in qualifying, then he could have had that race win. So, if all goes well, then Max can definitely be fighting up there. If the Red Bull upgrades also hold true in Silverstone, they worked quite well in Austria. It was a very big upgrade package for Red Bull, and it worked out quite nicely. So again, if that continues, then they should do quite well. Good morning, it's 4 a.m. for me. Just had to make sure to hit the like button. Well, much appreciated there, Seaferry93. And yeah, thanks, folks, for everyone that has hit the like button, everyone that has subscribed. It is much appreciated. It looks like this weekend might be the one where we do get to 250k, or it might be the weekend after. But thanks, everyone, for subscribing. Thanks, everyone, for hitting the like button. I've got a few new people following me on Instagram after I mentioned, my Instagram's F1gamer_official. So if you guys are interested, go ahead, pop me a follow, and I'll be. I did read the DM there. Someone in the chat there, F1 Gamer, I sent you a suggestion about the Discord server. Yeah, I did have did read that, and we do have a Discord server actually for the channel members, and yeah, I should probably open that up to to everyone really, because I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah. Will I be live for Sprint Quali? Indeed, I will. I'll be live in 4 hours and 10 minutes time for Sprint Quali. The stream is not up on my channel right now, but I'll get that public once we get towards the end of FP1. Okay. Do you think Lewis can challenge Kimi in the World Championship? Well, let's have a look at the championship standings here, folks. What are the drivers saying? What are the points saying? So we've got 171 points there for Kimi Antonelli in first position. We've got George Russell with 131 points to his name, and Lewis Hamilton 125 points to his name. So there is quite a big gap, right? There's no doubt about that. But is that an insurmountable gap? Absolutely not. You look at this season and you look at how the reliability has been shaping out for Mercedes. You look how many mechanical problems are having all up and down the grid. I think that while Kimi Anthony does have nearly a 50-point advantage over Lewis Hamilton, that is very, very easily that, there is a chance that it could all just disappear, right? There could be two mechanical problems back to back, and that points gap all just get gobbled up within the space of 2 weeks. So that is very much on the cards, but that is also the same thing that can happen to Lewis Hamilton. So right now, it's very much down to your consistency, but then also down to the car's reliability, and that is going to be a big concern. Again, grid penalties as well. So some teams might preemptively, is it better to do a bit of damage limitation, right? So let's say you are Kimi Antonelli, you're leading the championship by 50 points at this point of the season. Is it ideal for you to say, look, I trust you as engineers, and say, he says this to the Mercedes engineers, I trust you as engineers, but I want to ensure that the car makes it to the end of the season and I don't have any more DNFs. So can I take a few extra engine components? So potentially for Kimi Antonelli, there could be a race where he sacrifices his performance and he takes a brand new engine component for absolutely everything. All of the grid penalties stack up and he gets, just even if he got pole position, he'd get moved all the way to the back of the pack. But after all of the grid penalties has been applied, he's got a brand new set of components to hopefully prevent DNFs right till the end of the season. So is that something that Kimi Antonelli would do? Is that something that is a wise decision? We'll have to see, because you would much rather take a grid penalty, make progress up through the field, maybe finish up in 6th position and score a few points, rather than being the lead of the race and then get a DNF and lose all of your points. So potentially at a circuit like Spa, where there are loads of overtaking opportunities, that might be a move. We might see a few teams that want to ensure their reliability till the end of the season take a huge set of new engine components to ensure that they don't get problems later on towards the end of the season. Yeah, that might be a thing to consider. And in terms of constructors, look, Ferrari about 100 points off the back of Mercedes, so they've still got some more ground to make up. But Red Bull and McLaren are closing up quickly, so that is, it's tough to say. With every upgrade package that goes by, the difference between the top teams, every racetrack that we go to, the difference between the top teams becomes harder and harder to predict, and it's a whole lot closer. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, really. Yeah. Okay. When is sprint quali? Well, folks, there is a timer on the screen, as you can see, and yeah, I put the timer on the screen for a reason. So hopefully you guys can just have a look at that. Okay. What other questions have we got going through in the chat here? Hi, everyone, Gamer, what's up? Everything's going quite well, actually. Little bit of a sore throat here, so my voice, I'm sure, is sounding a little bit odd, but should be all right. John Lacey quoted, "Very surprised a crash car didn't cause a red flag." Yeah, I mean, look, we can make comments about these about the decisions that have been made by the FIA, and this will not be the first controversial decision, and it will most certainly not be the last as well. So there are countless things. I mean, I'm sure some of you have been watching the Football World Cup, and there was quite the big controversy between what was it, Croatia and Portugal last night, where the teams weren't happy about the offside decisions, and these things keep happening with technology. And was that the right decision? Was that not the right decision? Now that we have all the information, we have the telemetry to see if he lifted off or not, and all of that stuff. We know that he was only going through the apex at 8 kilometers per hour slower than the typical apex speed. So there is bad decisions to be made, but I think the more concerning issue is the FIA just fails to improve on on their past mistakes. They've done it in the past. In 2024 in Brazil, there was a crashed car. It was going to be a red flag. It still took them 40 seconds to bring out the red flag. Here in Austria, it took them 45 seconds to bring out the double yellows, even though the single yellows came out rather quickly. So, it's, I think the fact that the FIA doesn't learn from their mistakes is a far bigger issue. And yeah. Where to watch using the VPN, folks, it's ORF, O for Oscar, R for Race, F for Ferrari. It's live on ORF Channel 1 right now, so you can watch the coverage there. We'll have the drivers hitting the circuit very, very soon. 3 minutes and 50 seconds till we get the green light at the end of the pit lane for the drivers to exit onto the circuit. F1 Gamer, can you drop the memberships? Yes, I shall drop. I'll drop 5 memberships, I think. Should be able to do that. Here we go. So yeah, to 5 lucky members, 5 lucky people in the chat. Potentially they will be getting a few channel memberships there, which is much appreciated. And just thanks for tuning into the coverage here, folks. Okay. So, risk of rain, 0%. We should have all 22 cars coming out onto the track. Doesn't seem like anyone has got any mechanical issues, at least not that I've heard of, with a few minutes left to go at the start of this session. What I will do is do a hot lap, actually. So, here we go. Oh, Zlatan has got a membership, much appreciated. Okay, so let's pop on a flying lap of the circuit. So here we are, come through the final corner here. First thing, when you do, okay, so this is quite interesting actually, here at Silverstone, because the start finish line is so early on in this straight. When you start your flying lap, your exit out of turn number 17 and through turn number 18 is all focused on the straight line speed down the straight. But at the end of your flying lap, you're actually looking to just go as quickly as possible through turn 17 and 18, and then your speed down the straight doesn't matter whatsoever. So it's it's 2 totally different approaches depending on whether you're starting your lap or whether you're ending your lap. But you make your way through turns number 1 here. The first thing is just scrub off as little speed as possible, just the tiniest of steering inputs. In towards turn number 3, try and brake in a straight line to reduce the radius through the corner. Then you've got to get onto the power as smoothly as possible, run all the way out onto the curbs, and it is a bit bumpy, bit uncomfortable, but the drivers have to do it to maximise their lap time. It just gains them so much speed down the straights. Now in towards Brooklyn here, you're braking at the start of the curb through turn number 5. This corner here, you're actually taking a bit of a double apex. So you hit the first apex and you drift out wide. You turn the corner into a bit of a V, and then you cut back in here, and then you're onto the power, and you just sort of get onto the power as early as possible and hope that you stay within track limits, because it's a little bit hard to see as you're going over a bit of a crest there. Through Copse Corner, it was flat in the past. We'll see if it's flat this year, but, again, either a little lift and the drivers are trying to scrub off as little speed as possible. Through Maggots and Beckett's, I'm sure we'll see a lot of engine braking. That is the biggest way the drivers actually shed off speed through these corners. They turn the engine braking up to max, so they lift off the throttle and the car starts decelerating. And then you've got, again, this mega long straight where you, again, do have your straight mode section. You go through Stowe here. Track limits is quite difficult, especially going through Stowe. In fact, let me just rewind and sort of explain that to you. So at this point here, you can't really see where the exit curb is, especially, we're looking at this from the TV camera angle. From the driver's perspective, you're sat much lower down and you're going over this crest. You can't see where the apex is, so you have some reference point somewhere. Maybe it's a flag at a certain point, or a pole, or maybe it's a tree, or whatever it is, and you have to use that reference point essentially to make sure that You're turning in at the right point, you're getting onto the power at the right point, very easy to exceed track limits there. And then you go deep into this braking zone, down into third gear, and at this point you're just trying to go as quickly as possible through the corners. Your exit onto the straight doesn't matter because the start-finish line is just there at the start of the straight. But that is a lap of Silverstone, folks, and we do have the drivers hitting the circuit. Lewis Hamilton, first driver out onto the track, and we've got a big cheer from the British fans here. In F1 26, you've got to lift and coast through turn number... Oh, really? Well, I guess we'll see what happens when the cars hit the track, right? They're all coming out on hard tyres, so it looks like they're trying to, well, conserve their set of tyres here here at the sprint weekend. It is a little bit tough in terms of the tyres that you've got. You've got, I think, 13 sets of tyres from Pirelli, but you use quite a lot of them during sprint quali and the actual quali, which then means you've got limited sets for free practice, you've got limited sets for the sprint for the sprint race, and then also for the race itself. So the teams being very sort of frugal with the way that they manage their tyres and which tyres they use. All right. Jedi99, thanks for being a channel member for 6 months, especially on the race wind here. Really is appreciated there, buddy. And yeah, thanks for helping out the channel so much. What benefits does becoming a member give? I mean, you guys can join the Discord. And mostly it's just that your messages are in green, so I'm much more likely to read them. But that's about it, really. I haven't got a huge amount of perks. Probably if I set up my merch, which I've been intending to set up for a very long time now, but channel members will probably get a bit of a discount on that as well. All right. But we got 4,000 people tuned into the live stream. Much appreciated, folks. If you haven't hit the like button, be sure to do so. And we will be getting on our way towards hopefully 1,500 likes. We're 2 minutes into free practice one. All of the drivers, with the exception of Verstappen and Russell, are out onto the circuit. Russell is just making his way down the pit lane now, so it's just Verstappen who's still in the garage, and I suspect he'll be coming out rather soon. But it's hard tyres for absolutely everyone, and we're getting a few laps on the leaderboard right now. Free the merch, bro. Yeah, I just have been quite busy, to be honest. In fact, yesterday I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to start working in September. So yesterday I sort of went to they had like a company event, and they'd invited me to it just to sort of meet the people that I'd be working with and stuff like that. So yeah, I was traveling quite a bit the day before yesterday as well. Meeting a lot of people at the company that I'm going to be working at, and in fact the CEO of the company did ask me about my YouTube channel, which was quite interesting, but no, it was a nice experience, and yeah, but yeah, quite busy, so yeah, I do apologize, but the merch will come out. I'll get cooking soon enough. And of course there'll be the summer break as well in August, right? So hopefully by then I can get everything sorted. Employment flex, congrats. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been quite the long road, quite the lot of applications, but I have managed to clutch up. F1 Gamer, do you also watch the World Cup? How hype are you? No, I've been watching the World Cup. I've been watching a few games. That England game against the Democratic Republic of Congo was, quite tense for the English fans, I've got to say. Congo was playing really, really well, actually. But at the end, Harry Kane managed to save the day for England. F1 Gamer, can you put the throttle thing on the leaderboard so we can see when the drivers lift? I will... I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll alternate between when the driver's doing some quick laps. So at the end of FP1, when the driver's doing quick laps, I'll put the throttle thing on the screen so you guys can see if they're lifting or not through Copse Corner and such. But yeah, we've got Isaac. In fact, let's have a look. We've got Albon now making his way around a flying lap here, and as he makes his way through Copse Corner, yeah, he taps the brakes a little bit, lifts off the throttle, so it's about a 50% lift and maybe a little tap of the brakes as you make your way through there. At least that's what it's looking right now, but of course the track is very, very green, not any rubbering in. The drivers are on hard tyres, they've got lots of fuel, so maybe by qualifying things will change. Hey F1 Gamer, which application do you use for all the telemetry? It's called Multiviewer. You do need an F1 TV subscription to be able to use it, but it is called Multiviewer, so you can access that. What compounds we got? We got the hardest ones from Pirelli this weekend. So it's the C1 for the hard, C2 for the medium, C3 for the softs. Here at Silverstone, it's quite a high tire load circuit. You've got extremely high G-force corners, and Pirelli, as a bit of a safety precaution, just take the hardest compound of tires that they have available to them, because they don't want any tire failures. We've seen this in the past. In 2020, we had tire failures for Danny Kvyat. We had tire failures for of course, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas in those races. So yeah, since then, Pirelli have been bringing the hardest compounds of tyres that they've got to Silverstone. All right. We've got our first lap time deleted for Lando Norris at turn number 15. That's going through Stowe Corner. It is quite the tricky corner, as I said on my hot lap. You know, you're sat very low down in the car. You're going over a crest. You cannot see the apex. And for that reason, Lando Norris has got his lap time deleted, puts himself back down to 20th position. Of course, not a concern right now. It's free practice, but it is something the drivers will have to work on. Is Multiviewer available on all plans? You can get the cheapest one for F1 TV, and you can still be able to use Multiviewer, and you'll be able to get all access to all of this telemetry. Yeah, that is correct. Third sector's a bit cut off. Yeah, it is a little bit, actually, I think. I'll adjust that sooner. I'll adjust that rather quickly. Give me a sec. It's just a little bit difficult, really, with keeping all the font size big enough for people watching on their phones, but let's see what I can do. Okie dokes, there you go. You've got the third sector available to you as well. But you can see Lewis Hamilton top of the times at 1 minute 31.877. That is a long way off last year's pole time, but I wouldn't expect much different, really. We're on hard tyres. There's not a lot of rubbering in that's gone on the circuit right now. So everyone sort of driving at about 80%, no, probably not 80 actually. Drivers probably driving around 90% or so. They really do not want to crash the car right now. They've got teams have got very strict run plans. They've got to be out on the circuit pretty much all of the time during FP1 to get as much information as possible regarding, the battery recharge procedure, the warm-up lap procedure that they're going to have to do during sprint quali, the setup of the car as well. So there's lots of things for the teams to figure out, and having a crashed car or having any sort of damage in that form is going to be quite problematic. McLaren have got a nice new livery this weekend. It looks all right, really. I would have liked to see some more chrome, but at the end of the day, it will probably be too heavy to put on the car, and for that reason, they will not be driving with it. Oscar Piastri does find himself up, though, at the top of the times. He's about half a tenth up on Lewis Hamilton. Very nice. And we got Hadjar here on our push lap, actually. Purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. Making his way towards now turn number 17, and he's now just coming across the line. What's it going to be for the Frenchman? It is P1, and he's 1/10 up. And the lap times are tumbling, and this is exactly what we expect when the circuit is improving. Kimi Antonelli, now purple in sector number 1, and I'm sure he will find himself up at the top rather soon. Okay. Yeah. Nothing too much exciting right now, but you have got all 22 cars out on the track. They're all doing a bit of testing and seeing, getting the information that the teams want. Track temperature is at 39 degrees Celsius. That's a whole lot cooler than it was in Austria last weekend. Now we got air temperature at 21 degrees Celsius as well. So that's good news for the drivers. That's good news for Ferrari, who are struggling a lot with their tyre wear because of overheating tyres. So of course, cooler track temperature, less overheating. So that should bode well for them, and maybe they can find some more of their performance that they had in the Spanish Grand Prix. We've got Lando Norris that finds himself up into 4th position. What do you think of Kimi's dominance? Well, Kimi's been doing well, right? He's been doing well, and he's just gonna have to see how long he can keep it going. You know, the in-form run, the run in good form does not continue forever. So at some point, you are gonna sometimes things are gonna go wrong, and I think that is what defines a champion. That defines, you know, how good of a driver you really are. When things start going wrong, can you turn it around? Can you keep it going? Is your bad day still going to be 2nd position? Since there are battery management issues expected, do you think the teams will go for a lower downforce setup and try and combat the loss of straight line speed if the battery runs out? Well, you know, the battery is only going to be running out during sections where straight mode is already activated, right? You've got the front wing dropped, the rear wing dropped, and that will create a lot more top speed. So the drivers and the teams aren't so concerned about a low downforce setup to, you know, sort of offset the battery running out, because they'll already be running the lowest downforce a Formula 1 car can go by dropping the front wing and the rear wing. So no, I don't think running lower downforce is going to be all that helpful to recharge the battery recharge situation, to be honest. I think what they will do is they will encourage the drivers to lift and coast a lot more, and they'll be lifting and coasting most likely through Copse Corner, through Maggots and Beckett's. On the exit of Brooklyn going into left field, there will also be there'll be a lot of lifting and coasting there. So at any point on the circuit where you have to scrub off a little bit of speed, we might see that they do it via lifting and coasting rather than hitting the brakes. So I think that will be their solution to the problem, to be honest. Exoteric member for 22 months. Much appreciated there, mate. Morning. All right, we've got Max Verstappen top of the times there, 1:31.277, and we've got Piastri there, a few milliseconds back. Lewis Hamilton 1.5 tenths back, Charles Leclerc 3 tenths back, and Lando Norris again another lap time deleted for exceeding track limits at turn number 15, and that is his 2nd time doing that. He did it again at turn number 15, so both times same corner, and I think Lando Norris will just need a bit of a new reference point to be able to figure that one out. Alright, so I shall take you through another flying lap of the circuit while we are here waiting for a bit more action to happen on the track, so give me just a second here. Alright, what layout changes would you recommend on the circuit? Alright, thanks for the question. In fact, I'll just pause the flying lap for now, and I'll explain what layout changes I'd recommend. But thanks for the donation there, buddy. And what I would essentially be looking for is you want some more harder braking zones, right? So I would say potentially Stowe Corner here, where you've got, you know, you're going from 8th gear down into 5th gear. If you can turn that into a bit more of a sharper corner, then that will probably help overtaking quite a bit, because you have your overtake going in towards turn number 15 there, and then you've got another overtaking opportunity in towards turn number 17. So that makes the final sector a really good opportunity to have these multiple corner long battles, and then that can of course continue on down towards turn number 3, where at which point you'd go single file. So I think that would be a good change to the circuit. Maybe tightening up turn number 3 as well, that might help. But it's also good to keep the iconic corners, right? The iconic corners of Copse Corner, Maggots and Beckett's. So I think, yeah, those would be the 2 changes I'd make. Tighten up turn number 15 significantly, maybe turn it back on itself a little bit, and then turn number 3 as well. Do the same thing there. Alright, Lando Norris, 7th position there after not getting his lap time deleted on this occasion, and let's continue on with the flying lap here. So, in towards the final corner here, and your main thing is just to get a good long run and scrub off as little speed on the steering wheel. Same thing through turn number 1 here. It should be relatively easy to go flat, and then just tiny little steering inputs to scrub off as little speed as possible. Now this is the point where I was talking about we could see a little bit of lifting and coasting, right? So let's just rewind a few seconds. You're going in towards turn number 3 here. You get onto the power, and then you again have to slow down to make the apex of turn number 4. So to make that work, what you could do, get on the power and then roll it off, let the battery recharge as you're getting on, as you're slowing down for turn number 4, and then you can carry on accelerating up towards up through this straight. Of course, you've got straight mode down the straight, so you'll get a bit more top speed. Onto the brakes through here. Again, 5th gear that you hit this apex at, but then you've got to slow down. So at this point as well, you know, we're using a bit of the brake pedal. That can be replaced out with potentially a bit of recharging, and that can help the situation. But it depends, right? It depends if the drivability effects gets affected a lot. If, you know, if you're slowing down the rear wheels, how does that affect the understeer, oversteer characteristics of the car? What we're seeing through Copse Corner is we're seeing a bit of a lift from the drivers. They're not able to go flat in this year's cars. Through Maggots and Becketts, a lot of engine braking is turned up, in fact, here to help the drivers make their way through the corner without upsetting the balance of the car too much, because every time you touch the brake pedal, or even the throttle pedal for that matter, you get weight transfer to the back, you get weight transfer to the front, and it's very unsmooth. You know, as smooth as you want to be to get onto the brake pedal, you're still going to have this initial bite, and that's what the Formula 1 brakes are actually so good for, and they're so well renowned for, is that you get this incredible bite onto the brakes as soon as you touch the pedal. So the drivers are doing as much as possible to not touch the pedal, to not unsettle the balance of the car, because as soon as they touch the brake pedal, they shift the balance forwards, and what that does is, of course, when they want to get onto the power, you know, 2-3 seconds later down the line, they've not got much weight on the rear wheels, so they've got to be extremely smooth, which ends up being quite difficult in terms of gaining lap time. So engine braking as much as possible through Maggots and Becketts. You then go in towards Stowe here. Again, as I said, very difficult to see where the exit curve actually is when you're sat low down in the car. Deep braking in towards turn number 17 and 18, and at this point here you don't want a good run onto the straight, you just want the quickest distance to the line, so hug the inside line as much as you can, and that's a lap of Silverstone, folks. Has Ferrari brought any upgrades? Well, just in terms of the upgrade, folks, I had a look through the upgrade list document, and we have got upgrades for a few teams, but nothing major. It's all been very, very small tweaks, or absolutely nothing whatsoever. So, you know, the teams that did bring big upgrades in Austria, we saw Audi, we saw Alpine bring big upgrades. Absolutely nothing for them this weekend, and teams are also a little bit reluctant to bring upgrades to a sprint weekend, because essentially they've only got 1 hour of practice, right? So within that 1 hour, they're already so tight for time to work out, you know, what setup do we need and all of this other stuff that I've just mentioned, you know, a few minutes ago, that they cannot afford to then spend another 15 minutes trying to work out whether this new upgrade package is working as expected. Is the downforce levels what we expect? Is there too much downforce? Is there too little downforce? Is there too much drag? And all of these problems. So they will just not bring the upgrade package to Silverstone. They'll wait for the next Grand Prix and they'll bring them there. The blue in the sector times mean the drivers are driving through the pit lane. Here in Silverstone, we have got quite a lengthy pit lane, but it does also cut a few of these corners, right? You can cut through turn number 17 and 18. So depending on where you are you know, in the pit garage, it will be quicker to actually come across the pit lane line to set your lap. Oh well. No, that's probably wrong. I think they've changed that since Schumacher did it. But Schumacher did that at some point. I can't remember which race it was, but he came into the pit lane and it was actually quicker to come through the pit lane to cross the start finish line than it was to actually go the whole way around. But that's only across to the start finish line. Of course, then once you carry on to the following time, you still lose a lot of lap time. It's approximately 20 seconds, I think potentially up to 24 as well, depending on what the pit lane speed limit is this weekend. I don't know if it should be 80 kilometers per hour because it is a purpose-built racetrack. It was 1998, right? Schumacher, yeah. Cheers for that, folks. All right, 8,000 people tuned in. Much appreciated, folks. Hope you are enjoying. And yeah, if you're not subscribed, be sure to do so. Okie dokes. What else is going on as of right now? We've got about half the cars in the garage, half the cars are still lapping around, getting some more data for their teams. Have the rookies raced? We will have, I think, Formula 2 or Formula... Will we have Formula 2 or Formula 3 this weekend? We should. I think they do race at Silverstone. So we haven't got any rookies driving in FP1, and the reason is because, well, it's a sprint weekend. The next session that we've got is sprint qualifying, so you can't really afford to give rookies time to drive this weekend, but they'll probably be back for the next Grand Prix that we've got. And in terms of F2 and F3, they'll also be going on today. I think we've also got F1 Academy also racing as well. All right. F1 Gamer, who do you think will win? Bit tough to say, really. Bit tough to say right now, but Mercedes are always a safe bet. I'll have a look at what the odds are looking like for this weekend. But Antonelli just finds himself up at the top of the times, 2/10 up on Isaac Hadjar. But at the end of the day, we're on 11 lap old hard tires in free practice 1 with a bunch of fuel in the car. So it's a bit difficult to know that. Yeah. A bit difficult to know who's going to be the quickest there. Right, let's have a look. What are we saying for the British Grand Prix? It's looking apparently 36% Kimi Antonelli, 25% George Russell, 17% Max Verstappen, 16% Lewis Hamilton, 5% Lando Norris, and everyone else sub 5%. So those are what it's looking like right now. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, things look good, of course, for Antonelli. I think Red Bull might be a bit of a dark horse here in the form of Max Verstappen. They did quite well in Austria. I think the characteristics of Austria translate over quite well to Silverstone, even though Max might not like racing here. If he can get first position, I'm sure he will not care that his battery has to recharge for 3 seconds going down the straights. But, this is just how it goes. Hadjar won here in F2 and in F3. He might do quite well. Yeah, I mean, definitely you do have drivers that have their good circuits, and typically it carries on across multiple racing series. So I think Isaac Hadjar will have a good weekend. I mean, to be honest, his form has been pretty good. He's been getting relatively close to Max on quite a lot of occasions. So Hadjar's doing a good job, and I think he should be able to do quite well here. Okay. Who is the best current driver on the grid right now? Well, look, this is not a question for me to answer. Really, I'm sure everyone has got their own opinion of it. So, yeah. And to be honest, I'm not really in the. I don't think a free practice 1 session right now is a good time to be discussing that. The chat just gets awfully toxic. So we'll keep it as it is up to your own imagination. But we are getting a lot of lap times deleted here, folks. I haven't been communicating this to you, unfortunately. So let me just go through this. We've got Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Kimi Antonelli, Lewis Hamilton. A lot of drivers getting lap times deleted here at turn number 3. I think that's partially, of course, them going off the circuit just to avoid traffic and just to stop blocking people. But we are also getting a few representative lap times getting deleted. Pierre Gasly going through Copse Corner, got a lap time deleted there. We got Albon going through. Sorry, we got. So turn number 15, turn number 9, and turn number 3 are the biggest culprits for getting a lap time deleted by the looks of it. Yeah. Who's my favourite driver on the current grid? Probably would be between, I think, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri. I don't really know, because Seb Vettel was my favourite driver, and then nobody else has really come close to that. Maybe Nico Hulkenberg a bit as well, but yeah, no, I was actually considering, in 2023, I do think that if I didn't have the YouTube channel, I would have just stopped watching Formula One. And I think this is quite true for a lot of people, right? I think when Hamilton does leave the sport, there will be a huge number of people that never watch a Formula One race ever again. And same thing for Alonso, same thing for a lot of these big drivers. There'll be a very big dent left in the fan base when these people leave. So yeah, a lot of people just have their one driver that they support, and then if they leave, then that's the end of it, and then they'll go watch a different sport or something. So have the FIA double checked their stupid pit lane sensor distances? A million sensors on the car, and the FIA is like, nah, we got this. Well, I'm sure they probably will have checked it. They're not gonna. Well, I was just gonna say that they're not gonna make the same mistake twice, but that's happened a little bit too often. So, but yeah, hopefully they don't make the same mistake twice. And actually, it is Seb's birthday. Actually, someone's just typed that in the chat. But yes, it is the 3rd of July. So happy birthday, Seb. I'm not sure how old he is, but. Yeah, and thanks for the donation there, Exoteric. Let's see, Seb Vettel birth date. Seb Vettel age. He is 39 years old. 39 years old is Seb Vettel today. People forget that Fernando Alonso is literal 2-time world champion. He could be so much better in a better car. Yeah, I do. I would quite like to see Alonso and Verstappen in an equal car. I think I've mentioned this before, but even if it's a GT3 car, I would quite like to see how that plays out. What's my favourite British GP memory? Oh, it's got to be Nico Hulkenberg's podium last year. There's no other question about it, really. Yeah, it's got to be the podium from Hulkenberg. What a moment that was last year. Incredible. To watch the race, or to watch the coverage using the VPN, it's the Austrian VPN servers, folks, and then ORF Formula One. If you folks are interested, it's a $1 a month for Proton VPN. You'll be able to watch the British Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix, and the Hungarian Grand Prix, all for the price of $1. So I'd say it's a pretty good deal if you guys are interested. And then you can cancel at the end of the month once we go into the mid-season break. So yeah, go ahead and check out the link in the description. F1 Gamer who brought upgrades. We have got. I haven't got the comprehensive list right now remembered, but there are. Nobody's brought any big upgrades. Everything has been very, very minor. I'd say the biggest upgrade that we've got this weekend is probably Williams with a brand new front wing. And apart from that, everyone else has got such little tweaks to like, oh, we've got an extra little bit of carbon fiber at the rear wing or on the floor or something like that. Yeah. Hopefully, Australia, we can see Messi scoring another 7 goals. Oh yeah, we've got is it Argentina? Argentina are playing who is it? Cape Verde today. Is that happening? Yeah. And we've got Australia versus Egypt today. So that'll be exciting. Yeah. What's the battery management situation like? It's a little bit dire, really. It's a little bit dire. I right now haven't got the percentages of how much percent of the lap were the drivers clipping and things like that. In Austria, it varied between 4 to 7% of the lap was spent clipping, I think. So that was approximately 200 meters. Now, of course, I think all of us fans will be like, oh, that's 200 meters too much of clipping. But yeah, I'll try and get the numbers for Silverstone and see what the case is. 5 minute lap from Kamianza. Yeah, that was just him going into the pit lane, then coming out the pit lane, and then the data calculating it as a 5 minute lap. What are the chances of Lewis winning? I think the odds are looking like it's 16% chance. 16% chance for Lewis Hamilton winning apparently. Yeah. Charles Leclerc up into 4th position there, goes ahead of Lewis Hamilton by about 2 tenths. Lap times has seemed to settle down a little bit now. The quickest laps that we've seen are just in the 1 minute 30s, but again with hard tyres and the track yet to rubber in. We'll see a lot of Trek Evolution still going in towards sprint quali later on today. So the track will still continue getting quicker and quicker. We have got Alonso out on some soft tyres, so let's see what he can do. Of course, it's Aston Martin's home race, it's McLaren's home race, Mercedes' home race because their factory's here. Williams' home race, so quite a lot of teams. I'm sure also with the factories being so close to the circuit, I think the engineers will have access to see the cars a lot more because of course typically you can only fly out so many people, but given that you're in the UK, you can just get the engineers to drive over to the track. F1 Gamer, it's sad, even with the upgrades, Williams seem to be so far from the points. I'm really surprised with how far back Alpine is right now, though. Well, look, it's free practice. We know that the Mercedes had issues with their power unit, so I don't blame Alpine if they are just turning down the power unit to ensure that there's no problems later on, or to try and ensure that there's no problems later on. And yeah, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But yeah, Williams' performance has been lacking, really. There hasn't been a huge, they've brought upgrades and things, but everyone else is also now upgrading at a similar level, at a similar performance per 5 races. If you can bring 2 tenths of performance, Williams is doing similar stuff to that. So, to make your way up the field, you have to outdevelop your competition because everyone's developing. So bringing an upgrade package is just sort of the bare minimum, really, if you look at it in that sort of perspective. So you've got to bring more upgrade packages, bigger upgrade packages, more components. But I think also another problem with the Williams team is also the drivability of the car. We've had Albon and Sainz both complain on numerous occasions that they're having issues with the stability of the car and they aren't as confident and they can't push as much as they want. Because look, you can spend, thousands of engineer hours to try and get a slightly faster car. Or you could spend, probably hundreds of engineers' hours and figure out the stability problems, figure out the setup issues, and then get the drivers to drive 1 tenth quicker because they're confident in the car. So I think they've got to chase down sort of the low-hanging fruit first. But, it's very easy for me to say, oh, it's low-hanging fruit, but setup issues are inordinately complicated. You've got so many different factors that are at play, and Williams will be trying their best, but clearly things haven't been working out. We've got Lewis top of the times there, 1 minute 30.5. He goes ahead of Kimi Antonelli, 2/10 clear, quarter of a second clear. So that's a nice job there from Lewis, top of the times, with a 15 lap old set of hard tyres. Aston Martin is potentially cooked this weekend. Do you think Hungary and Zandvoort upgrades will suffice? Stroller said the simulation shows that they'll be much faster with the upgrades. Well, I would hope the simulation shows that they're much faster with the upgrades, because that's sort of the point. You don't want your simulation showing that you're going to be slower. But will they suffice? We got a yellow flag. What's that? Is that Piastri? Piastri's going slowly through turn 13. Piastri going slowly. Let's have a look. He is, yeah. We've got a green sector there. Seems like he's just crawling along at 100 and, well, I say crawling along, he's going 150 kilometers per hour, but no more than 10-20% throttle for Piastri. So looks like he might be coming into the pit lane. What was I talking about? About Aston Martin. Well, it depends on how good their upgrades is at the end of the day, right? They haven't, I guess they haven't set a specific number. Is it going to be 2 seconds faster, 3 seconds faster, whatever it is? But Adrian Newey has been cooking supposedly, and well, we'll see how it works out for them. But it didn't work out so well in the past. Well, yeah, for the start of the season, of course. So, do you have faith in them for them to recover? I don't know. I still have some sort of hope for Aston Martin. I think that they'll make a pretty big step forward, but Aston Martin were hoping to win championships, win races and things like that, and yeah, they're a long way away from that, even if they do have a big upgrade package. Weather report for the weekend: it seems to be dry, minimal chance of rain, but it is it's the UK, so I'll be looking at the clouds. I'll be doing a bit of a cloud analysis, and I'll give you my forecast opinions a little bit later on, of course. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really an expert, am I? But the weather people say no rain. Why did Oscar just say the hard tyres are gone in just 13 laps? Well, maybe they are, right? Maybe they are struggling with tyre wear. We've got track temperatures at 40 degrees, which is, I'd say, about normal really for Formula One weekends. We don't really tend to go that much lower, unless there are some sort of special circumstances. So who knows, really? We got George Russell here. He got a nice toe there through the final sector, I think, from Albon, and that's why he's purple in all of the start of Sector 3 in terms of the mini sectors. And now he comes across the line, and George Russell does not improve, but he's three seconds off the pace. So that just indicates that he's got a whole lot of fuel in the car. How far are you from the Grand Prix circuit? Maybe you can go a quick IRL stream. No, I'm quite the distance away, to be honest, from the Silverstone circuit. So yeah, unfortunately, will not be able to do a quick IRL stream, to be honest. It would be quite nice, but I have noticed that when you're in a very crowded location with lots of people in a very concentrated area, your mobile network doesn't seem to work as well. I don't know if it's to do with the cell towers or the receivers or the transmitters or whatever it is, but I think to be able to stream in such a crowded area like that, I'd have to have like 4 backup SIMs working together to provide me a stable connection if I was to do a stream in Silverstone itself. Oh, also, which I don't currently have the facilities to do that. So, yeah. But the other thing I wanted to mention, folks, Nicholas Latifi is at the Silverstone circuit and he is DJing. Totally off topic, but Nicholas Latifi is DJing at Silverstone. He, I think 2 years ago now, or 1 year ago, got a MBA in business. Well, I mean, Masters in Business Administration. So he did that in London. and we haven't really seen him much around in Formula One, really, but he's here at Silverstone and he's doing a bit of DJing. So pretty nice to see him back in the world of Formula One. Internet is an overload at the circuit, so you need Starlink. Yeah, I mean Starlink needs to be plugged in, right? And that's the other thing. And then also you can't move around your thing. Like it's got to be in a fixed location. So then, yeah. So it is what it is. We'll have to work something out. If I was to, of course, go to the circuit itself, but I think it's quite nice just doing it from here, a bit relaxed, a whole lot less stressful, a lot less organising and things like that as well. So is Lewis going to do it? I can never doubt this guy. Every time I do, it proves me wrong. Yeah, I mean, Lewis, honestly, Silverstone, an incredible circuit for him, and he's got so many wins here, so you can't really count the guy out, can you? If Ferrari give him a car that is even close enough or within margin, then I'm sure they'll be able to pull out a good lap, pull out a few good stints during the race. But the same could be said for Max, right? The same could be said for George Russell in front of his home fans. So it is, as it always is in Formula One, a combination of the drivers, the teams, and their performance on the day. Are Red Bull Racing testing race pace? Probably, yeah. They're doing 1 minute 34 lap times. You got Ferraris doing 132s, Mercedes 133s. Again, like they're all on different fuel loads, so there's no point comparing. But what you can do once the session's over, you can have a look at all of the lap times, see which teams lap times drop off quicker. I think, if you're seeing a team with a lot more tyre wear, like Ferrari was in Austria, you'll see that their lap times just, continue rising up. The more laps that they do on their tyres, the lap times rapidly start increasing, whereas, a team that's a little bit better on their tyres, the increase is much more shallow. My quali stream is set for after 1 hour after quali, is it? Oh yeah, I must have set the incorrect timing for that actually. So I'll cheers, buddy. I'll update the timing for the quali stream. Yeah. Don't know how I did that one. Okie dokes. What time is sprint quali in the UK? Well, it's 4:30 p.m. UK. But I'm sure you guys can all figure it out. There's a timer there, 3 hours and 20 minutes or so, and you can work it out in your respective time zone as well. Alrighty. So we've got about 40 minutes or so have been done of free practice one here. We've got about 15 minutes left, and now we're going to get the quick runs. We're going to get the soft tyres coming out, or the medium tyres as well. That could be another option because, well, the medium tyres are going to be used during the sprint race, so that gives the teams a reason to practice right on the medium tyres, see what they're like. They're also going to be using the medium tyres during sprint quali, so they ideally want to work out what the warm-up procedure is for the medium tyres. So if it requires, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, at which corners do you have to push to get the front tire temperature up? Which corners do you have to push to get the rear tire temperatures up, and the brakes and so on and so forth. So they'll be learning about that. They will of course have all of these things planned out in advance, but you do have to fine tune and fine tweak everything because Formula One's a matter of pretty fine margins. What's my opinion on the Cadillac livery? Let's have a look what it looks like. Cadillac F1 livery. I haven't actually seen them much on the broadcast for today. Oh yeah, it looks nice. I mean, it does look quite similar to toothpaste, like Colgate toothpaste, where you've got the red, the white, the blue. But you could also say it looks similar to the French flag, right? Like, but nice enough. Okay, so everyone in the pit lane right now. Not everyone. We got Lawson, Lindblad out, Hamilton and Bottas out, but seems like everyone is going to come into the pits and put on a set of softs and go again. What websites are working, folks? If you do want to watch the coverage for $1 a month, it's Proton VPN, and then you can do that. You can connect to an Austrian VPN server, and then you can join ORF, and you should be able to watch the coverage. So ORF Formula One, and you can watch the cars go around on the track. The commentary is in German, so of course, if you don't understand German, then you can just mute the coverage, listen to me talk. But you're probably going to listen to me talk anyway, so you can do it with the cars going around the screen. Has Red Bull performing any issues? Well, they're doing all right actually. Not too bad. Hadjar's doing a nice enough job, and yeah, I'm sure they'll complain about the clipping and this, that, and the other, but I think it's going to be a strong weekend for Red Bull. What do you think of the McLaren livery? I can't see the coverage. They're supposed to have an historical one. Yes, they are. It's quite nice, but it's not a McLaren chrome livery, which is I think what a lot of us do want to see. Oh, Channel 4's also doing live coverage in the UK this weekend. Oh, okay, that's I thought they stopped doing that, but okay, yeah. Well, there you go, folks. Liam Lawson up into P3. That is medium tyres for him. Of course, slightly lower fuel load, but regardless, still a good lap there from Liam Lawson. And yes, I guess if you are in the UK, we've got about 10% of people, I think, that watch the streams from the UK. You will be able to watch on Channel 4, which is great. Okay. So pretty much, a lot of these drivers have been not driving non-stop from the start of the session. A few breaks here and there, changing fuel loads and stuff like that. But now they'll be making their setup tweaks. So if they want to stiffen up the suspension, then they'll do that. If they want to add some rear wing angle, they'll be doing that. And once all of that is done, they'll find themselves out on a set of soft tyres or a set of mediums to go out and do some quali practice. What happened to Alpine? No upgrades. Yep, Alpine brought a big set of upgrades in Austria. No upgrades this weekend, and yeah, they're probably just running their engines a bit conservative. So I wouldn't be all that concerned. And of course, there are a few drivers up ahead of them that have been probably doing runs with less fuel, like Cadillac, for example. Sprint pole for Max for sure. Well, we can see, because Max did pull out a pretty sensational lap last year. He did not really have the car for pole position. Took a huge gamble with, I think, a super low downforce setup, and somehow still managed to hold the speed through the corners. And then, of course, because he had the low downforce setup, was quick down the straights, and managed to get pole position, which was quite mega. So maybe we'll see some more bold decisions, some more risky plays being taken place today. But it's tough to say. Alright, quickest first sector we have seen all weekend long. Oscar Piastri at 28.5. 2 seconds up. Not 2 seconds, 2/10 up on Max Verstappen's first sector. Yeah, Max has been given a yellow flag infringement, but no further investigation there, so nothing much of concern. George Russell goes quicker by about 1/10 than Piastri in the first sector, so Russell improving there. Piastri goes purple in sector 2, and I'm sure Russell might have something to say about that as he comes across the middle sector line as well. Let's have a quick look. What is George Russell doing? Is he going to lift? He is. So folks, just to confirm, a 50% lift for the drivers as they go through Copse Corner. That is what it's looking like right now with the drivers out on soft tyres and relatively low fuel. Oscar Piastri across the line, a 130.1 from him on a set of soft tyres. We'll see what George Russell does as he comes across the middle sector line. Another purple sector for him. He makes his way down this straight. No tow from Albon on this occasion. He makes his way into Stowe now. Very close to track limits, but manages to keep it just under control as he makes his way through there. The car, of course, dancing around a little bit over the curbs. And then the final corner, extremely difficult to get the power down because your tyres are just so hot. But George Russell manages it quite well. 2/10 up on Oscar Piastri, and across the line he goes. Okay. So there we go. Antonelli. What is Antonelli doing through Maggots and Beckett's? A little tap of the brakes and just a little bit of throttle as well. So yeah, Anthony off the throttle for a little bit, but majority of the time he's spending about 10% throttle as he goes through Maggots and Beckett's just to sort of stabilise the car. Antonelli goes quicker in the first sector, quicker in the second sector, both compared to George Russell by about a tenth in the first sector, 2/10 in the middle sector. So Antonelli is really on a roll here, especially at George Russell's home race. I'm sure that will sting a little bit. George Russell will have a lot of his family, his fans, his friends all at the circuit, so he'll have that added bit of pressure, and we'll see how that affects him. But as Antonelli comes across the line, the gap is nearly half a second between himself and his teammate Kimi Antonelli, with a monstrous lap coming across the line there. Charles Leclerc with a really good final sector, in fact quicker than Antonelli's, and both Ferraris are quicker than Antonelli through the final sector, so maybe that's indicating Ferrari deploying a bit more of their battery towards the end of the lap. But it is third position there for Charles Leclerc, half a second back from Antonelli. Mold69, I've been watching all of your live streams since midway through last season. I've got to say, no one else does it like you, and I want to say thank you for what you do. Well, much appreciated for tuning in from halfway through last season, right? That's nearly been a year of listening to all of my streams. So, no, I'm glad for all of the people that have been listening since 20,000 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers. It is it's a great pleasure to commentate to you guys, and I hope you all enjoy the coverage, and hopefully I don't get too boring and don't repeat the same things again and again. So I think that's one of my biggest concerns, that people that have been watching for 4 or 5 years, that they don't get bored of me commentating. But Formula One seems to keep itself rather interesting. There's always new stuff going on, so I think I should be all right in that regard. Alright, Lewis Hamilton is starting a flying lap. He is on a fresh set of soft tyres, currently 1 second down on Kimi Antonelli, but that was on an old set of hards. Sector number 1, he goes quicker than Russell, slower than Antonelli, splits the two Mercedes. That's looking good in sector 1. And now he makes his way towards Copse Corner. How much of a lift are we going to get from Lewis Hamilton? We got about a 50% lift from Russell, 50% lift from Antonelli. This is interesting here from Hamilton. Hamilton does lift all the way to 10%, but he does it for a tiny little split second here. And I've got to say, that is potentially the better way to do it, because you give yourself a tiny little split second lift, that you get load transfer to the front wheels because you lift off you get deceleration going on a little bit, weight transfer to the front, and at that split second where you lift off, you've got weight on the front wheels, you can then chuck the car in, and it really goes through Copse Corner at that point. So Hamilton lifting off to 10%, but for a little split second, whereas Antonelli and Russell, they hold 50% for quite a while. And clearly, it works out quite well for Lewis, because he's just gone 2/10 clear of both of the Mercedes drivers. So I think both the Mercs are going to have a quick look at Hamilton's telemetry and see what's going on there. But quite nicely done there from Lewis. And it's the experience showing. And the thing that Hamilton is doing is harder to do, because your split second timing has to be absolutely perfect. If you lift off ever so slightly too late, you drift wide, you exit track limits, you get your lap time deleted. If you lift a little bit too early, then you hit the apex too early, and then you can't get onto the power early enough, and and then you lose lap time all the way through Magnussen and Beckett's. High risk, high reward, but Hamilton can pull it off. All right, I'll have a look at what the other drivers are doing. So Piastri here on a flying lap. What is he doing? He is. Wait, Piastri? Did Piastri just hold it flat through? Wait, no way. Oh no, Piastri might be on a bit of a slower lap there. Yeah. Okay, we'll see what the other drivers can do. We've got Verstappen here on a flying lap as well. Verstappen through the middle sector of 36.6. That's about 4/10 off what the quickest is looking like. So a lot more improvement there left for Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc improves. He's 6/10 back from his teammate. That's a huge gap. Wow. Okay, Lando Norris coming out onto the circuit as well. Max Verstappen across the line, 1 full second slower than Lewis Hamilton, and that was a reasonably quick lap there from Max. I mean, I'm sure he probably made a mistake here or there, but yeah, that margin is looking quite large. Okie dokes. Don't worry about that. Hamilton's thing just flickered a little bit, said stopped. But if you drive a little bit too slow, the GPS doesn't know if you've actually had a problem or if you're just driving slowly. So I wouldn't get too concerned about that. Maybe Red Bull are hiding the pace. It's we do not know. They could have more fuel in the car. Yeah. It does seem likely, actually. Well, I'll have a look at what their speeds are. I think Hadjar... Yeah, they're both on cooldown laps right now. So... Oh, in fact, Hadjar might be on a push lap here. So let's watch what Hadjar is doing. Oh, no, he's not on a... Yeah, Hadjar isn't on a push lap, actually. Okay, dokes. Yeah, I think if I look at the odds now for Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix, I'm sure they will have changed a little bit. Yeah, swung a little bit more to Lewis Hamilton's favour, up from 16% to 19% after that FP1 performance. Still 3 minutes left, still some opportunities for anyone else to displace the drivers if they would wish to. George said this isn't his best track. Well, if you want to be a Formula One World Championship, if you want to be a Formula One World Champion, you cannot have, oh, I don't like this track, I'm not going to be good at it. You've got to be good at everything, really. There's 22 races on the circuit on the calendar, and championships have been decided by some pretty fine margins in the last few years. So yeah, can't afford to really have a bad race or a bad race circuit. What caused Ferrari to struggle so much in Austria? I think it was a combination of things. Firstly, the tyre wear was horrific compared to all of the other teams. They were just chewing through their tyres like no tomorrow. I don't know what exactly the cause of that was. Of course, everyone had the same hot temperatures, but Ferrari seemingly couldn't deal with it as much as everyone else. And then also, I think the recharge situation at the Ferrari team wasn't optimal, so that was another issue for them. Which one is the Hamilton straight? I think they renamed the start finish straight here. So the one between the final corner and the first corner, I think that one's called the Hamilton straight, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is the one. Yeah, I mean, I think when you rename a circuit, rename a straight to a driver, in my opinion, I think the driver should be retired. I think it's a little early to be calling it the Hamilton straight before he's even retired from the circuit. Nice, but I think they've already called it that. So All right, doesn't look like we're getting significant lap times improvements here. We've got 50 seconds left on the clock, and Hamilton through the middle sector. Actually, as I say, that goes purple, so some more improvement there from Lewis, and we'll see what he can do on a used set of tyres here. Used set of soft tyres. First sector, of course, wasn't as good as you would have liked it to be, but his middle sector was purple, and we'll see what he can do now. Coming through turns number 17 and 18. Across the line comes Lewis Hamilton. What's it going to be for him? And it's slower by half a second or so. The middle sector was great, of course, but first and third sector just not enough performance where he needed it. And you can put that down to the used tyres if you want. Track temperature still up at 42, 43 degrees Celsius now, so it has increased by about 3 degrees from the start of the week, from the start of the session, but still it's well within the range that the teams were expecting, and the Pirelli tyres should be able to handle that, especially the hard or the medium tyres. We'll be seeing the medium tyres getting used during sprint quali. For Sprint Quali 1, Sprint Quali 2. Sprint Quali 3, of course, will be soft tyres, and then the sprint race, I think, also will be medium tyres. All right. Yeah, not too much long really. I think we've got a few more drivers doing some quick laps here. Max Verstappen in the first sector is green. In the middle sector is also looking pretty good as well. And we'll see how this works out for him. This flying lap. Oscar Piastri also looking to improve here. Max Verstappen 36.4 in the middle sector again, 2/10 down. So still some more pace to be unlocked. Final sector isn't looking so good for Max. A lot of yellow. Here comes Oscar Piastri. Got a really good exit out of turn number 18, and across the line he comes, and it is about a tenth and a half slower, but used tyres, 8-lap-old soft tyres, in fact, for that matter, so I think Piastri can still take away a few positives from that one. The final sector for Max Verstappen was absolutely horrible, and he goes 28 milliseconds slower than his previous lap, but if you do look at his theoretical times, then you've got a bit more, 2/10 worth of improvement there available to Max, but still quite the big gap left to the Ferraris and the Mercedes. So I think potentially Ferraris are back. It's, a little bit too early to say, but, we'll find out in 2.5 hours when, in 3 hours' time is when sprint quali takes place. I'll start 2.5 hours. I'll go through some telemetry, look at the clipping, who's quick down which straight, who's quick through the corners, and all of that sort of stuff. So we should be, yeah, that'll be great. So in about 3 hours' time, we'll have sprint quali starting. 2.5 hours, I'll start my broadcast, go through some telemetry and stuff like that. But folks, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys for FP1, and that is the end of that. We've got the drivers just going around to do their launches off the grid to get their clutch settings for the sprint race and the race in the following days. But that is all from me, folks. That is all from me. I shall see you tomorrow not even tomorrow, I'll see you for the sprint race in a couple hours. Sprint quali for a couple hours, sprint race tomorrow. And I'll end the stream. I'll take you over to the sprint quali stream. So if you could just hit the like button on that, it does wonders for the algorithm. So thanks everyone that hits the like button on this stream. We've hit 246k, which is mega. And hopefully we can get closer and closer to the big old 250, big old 250,000. Yeah. All right, folks. I shall see you in 2.5 hours' time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.